Hi, this is Angie Draculus, Editorial Director of BioPharm International and Pharmaceutical Technology magazines. Today I'm here with Norman Baylor and Michael VanDerWerf, who are the co-chairs of the 2012 PDA FDA Vaccines Conference, which is taking place December 3rd and 4th in Bethesda, Maryland. Thank you both for joining me today.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, Norman, let me start with you. What major themes will be addressed at the Vaccines Conference this year?
To start out, I think it's important to say that this overall meeting will provide a forum for discussion of many important vaccine issues as far as vaccine development, manufacturing, and regulatory issues. There will be discussions on such topics as adventitious agent testing, in particular requirements of the US FDA and the EMEA. There will be discussions on rapid test methods, discussions on standardization and testing in a global environment, as well as discussions on securing supply chain. And these discussions, these major themes really encompass the importance of trying to make vaccines available across the globe, as well as addressing manufacturing issues which may vary among the different regulatory authorities across the globe.
Thank you. And Michael, what else is new and exciting that people attending this conference can expect?
I think Norman has hit on the high points of what the meeting is organized to do, but I would just add that in particular, we will be trying to emphasize promotion of innovation in vaccine manufacturing. That is the control of manufacturing, better control, resulting in a more efficient manufacturing process. And certainly one of the buzzwords that we hear nowadays is quality by design. And how does quality by design, how can that work for promoting innovation in vaccine manufacturing? Also, I would add to one of the points that Norman made, and that is the globalization of vaccines and their role in public health across the globe. Diseases cross borders. In today's jet-setting world, a disease outbreak in one region can quickly spread to other regions, and so there is a requirement that there be much better enhanced communication, not only among regulatory authorities, but among public health officials. And that communication needs also to be passed on to manufacturers. So manufacturers can properly adjust their manufacturing schedules, as well as look at the antigens involved with these disease outbreaks. For example, SARS or flu, which changes on an annual basis. And manufacturers need to be flexible. They need to be able to address these issues in coordination with public health officials to make vaccines available to those who need it the most in an efficient and cost-effective manner. Also, as we talk about globalization, we in the developed world are very familiar with vaccines and vaccine schedules, but where the demand is the greatest is in the developing world. And the developing world is one with the least amount of money to spend on the purchase of vaccines. So it's incumbent on vaccine manufacturers to really be evaluating their manufacturing on a regular basis to look for ways to economize and reduce the cost of vaccines so that they can be made available to the developing world. I think those are really two of the important themes underlying this year's vaccine conference.
Thank you. And Michael, you mentioned QBD. I'm wondering if you could talk briefly about regulatory challenges the vaccines developers are facing right now and how this conference might help in those areas.
Well, I think quality by design for a complex product like a vaccine it's still to be defined. Although their quality by design is becoming more and more accepted in the well-characterized biologics world, and there is a case study on the AMAB. The vaccine industry is really still trying to adopt the concept of quality by design and how it can be applied to a product where the process still is very much the predictor of the final product. There has been a recent group sponsored by PDA, as well as with FDA participation. The AVAX case study, which was a collaboration between industry and regulators, was trying to explore just how we can apply the concepts of quality by design to the complex products like vaccines. There will be an update report in the vaccine meeting in December and very much look forward to just how companies are interpreting that case study and what kinds of challenges they feel the case study has addressed.
Thank you. And Norman, any additional thoughts on regulatory challenges facing this sector right now?
Yes, especially as staying with the focus of global. One of the key challenges to manufacturers is trying to make vaccines accessible to the global population. And some of these vaccines will require modifications of old vaccines. And one of the challenges for manufacturers is how do you modify these older vaccines, given the fact that if you make considerable changes to these vaccines, that would require a new biologics license application, at least in the U.S. And so to improve or make these products more accessible, for example, looking at cold chain, where these vaccines may have to be at high temperatures, and using or developing different stabilizers to be able to bring these products into areas where there may be high temperatures. Then just the opposite of that as well, they bring them into areas where these vaccines may be in very low temperature areas. So changing old products is a very large challenge. The other challenge is finding unique ways to deliver the vaccines. There's a lot of research on the manufacturers and even partnering with different device manufacturers to come up with novel ways to deliver these vaccines, again, particular in developing and underdeveloped areas of the world. Another challenge would be coming up or developing regulatory pathways to deal with the novel vaccines, such as adjuvanted vaccines. What regulatory pathway will be required? And it may vary from regulatory authority to depending on the U.S. or Europe or other parts of the world. And how do you come up with different pathways that may be across regulatory authorities? For example, looking at clinical trials and clinical trial designs, if there could be a way to develop clinical trials or design clinical trials that would satisfy more than one regulatory authority, that would be a way to reduce some of the costs that would be involved in doing multiple clinical trials for various national regulatory authorities. Other challenges, I think, would be what are the roles of of governments in these areas, and how do these manufacturers work with the various governments? For example, the ministers of health in developing and testing new vaccines in different areas of the world. For example, a malaria vaccine, for instance, that where we don't have malaria in the United States, how do we license that vaccine in the United States to provide that vaccine for areas where that vaccine would be needed? So these are some of the challenges that cross not just the manufacturers, but they also cross all the stakeholders from the various governments, national regulatory authorities, as well as the actual individuals who are receiving the products.
Thank you, Norman. And just one last question for you. What one or two key questions do you hope the conference will address for the industry?
One of the things I'm optimistic that will be addressed in the conference is conveying the message that the manufacturers and other stakeholders are vital to making sure that vaccines are available to all parts of the world. And so, understanding why we have a role, we, the U.S., plays a role in making sure that vaccines are available to other parts of the world, understanding how the interplay across the globe for access to vaccines. Another question in general from the manufacturing side is really having some of the regulatory authorities really clarify the requirements and pathways for licensing vaccines and improving the current vaccines that we do have. I'm hopeful that also that there will be innovative and creative thinking that will come out of this meeting to develop regulatory pathways that are not necessarily available now for some of the new technologies.
Thank you. And Michael, for you, what one or two questions do you hope the conference will address for the industry?
Well, I couldn't agree more with Norman's observation that we do need to think about perhaps some harmonized ways of viewing these novel vaccines from a regulatory perspective. I think the key is that the industry working with the public health departments as well as the regulatory agencies, views these innovations in terms of controlling communicable diseases. That's really the important role that vaccine plays in society, both in the developed world and in the developing world. And we need to find ways to make that process more efficient, not only for well-known diseases, diseases that have been addressed by vaccines for a number of years or decades, but with these newly discovered vaccines. For example, using Norman's example of malaria, I mean, a vaccine for malaria would really impact literally tens of millions of lives across the globe. And whatever we can do to make that vaccine available across the globe, across different national borders, make it available for travelers going to areas where malaria is endemic without jumping over tremendous regulatory hurdles, but really to control the devastating diseases that are out there, that vaccine developers have been able to develop vaccines. That's really, I think, a very critical item to be addressed. Along those lines, I would also say that whatever we can do to allow the release and distribution of vaccines across various markets would be very helpful. This is not a new conversation, but I'm hoping that with the participants in the December meeting, in particular with the participants from multiple regulatory agencies, we can really try to accelerate this conversation. We will be having regulators from FDA as well as Europe as well as WHO at the conference in December. And I hope that we can have an open dialogue about, are there mechanisms, are there pathways where we could consider a centralized sort of release process, so that for every country where we're trying to send a vaccine, be it for example, just diphtheria or tetanus, does every country need to do the testing? Because this, of course, consumes a lot of resources, and it is inefficient in that for a small country, a manufacturer might be making a large batch of tetanus vaccine going to maybe 60 or 100 countries. Well, if a good percentage of all of the manufacturing is consumed in this testing, that makes less product available for patients who need them. It adds to cost, and it probably doesn't accomplish very much. There is, of course, legislative concerns. Nations are obligated under law to test incoming drugs. So what I would hope is that we can start a conversation about just what it is that we're trying to accomplish with this release testing at the official medicine control laboratories, sometimes called the OMCL. What are we trying to accomplish? What might be a mechanism to try to make that more efficient? What would be a standardized approach? What would be a standardized approach toward actual specifications for release? And what would be the pathway to try to make that more efficient? I think that would be also a very important dialogue to kick off, or at least try to accelerate at this conference when we have all these different players, all these different stakeholders involved.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I know that harmonization is a crucial aspect for many sectors of the industry, and I do wish you the best of luck with that dialogue, and I look forward to attending the conference. So thank you both for your time. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it.